Hello, this is Jason P. Wilson 01 X-Force, and this is my DC comic pull list for the first part of the new year. Now, similar to my postings that I did with the end of the year, I put all those comics together. I'm doing the same thing here with the beginning of the year for 2012. These are all the DC books that I've gotten since the beginning of the year all the way to current, and today is the 20th, and it is a Friday. And I have read everything, I'm all caught up, and now I just want to post everything up to this point because there's been a lot of really good books by both Marvel, Independence, and DC. I thought this was a great new way to try something different. What I'm doing now is I'm posting two at a time and kind of talking about both the comics and then going to two more. Usually the two that I put up have some connection, not necessarily the same type of book, but they do have something in common. And first here for my DC are Wonder Woman number 5 and Catwoman number 5. Now all my DCs here, they are all going to be number 5s. Every single one that I'm putting here in this posting are all number 5s. So I probably won't mention that again. Just know that everything here is number 5. Kind of makes it easy when you're posting a lot of videos. But I think it's pretty funny. I haven't read a bunch of comics before that have always been the exact same number like they are right now with DC. So I think that's kind of cool. And first up here, you can see the connection here are two very strong women that are part of the new DCU. And I'm going to go ahead and start here with one of my favorite DC books, and that is Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman up to this point has been so exceptional. I really can't stress it enough. I've always liked Wonder Woman, and I've always wanted to read a good Wonder Woman story, and I have. There's been a lot of good stuff with Wonder Woman in it, like the Trinity and all that stuff. And with her own book, her own solo book, they've relaunched her quite a few times, and it's always been strong. I really liked, when she's in the Superman, Batman stuff. So she has a lot of good books that have come out over the years. But when it comes to the main series of Wonder Woman, it's always been like a B book almost, because you had a great A-list character, but the character usually starts out strong in her own series, and then it goes in a direction that, for me and I think for a lot of people, they lose interest. And this is what I do. If I'm reading a book and the only reason I'm reading the book is because I really like the main character in the book, but I ask myself, if this wasn't Wonder Woman, or if this wasn't a certain character, would I still be reading this book? And after the first story arc or so with the Wonder Woman series, the answer is no. I love this character, but the direction the story is going in, I wouldn't be reading it if I didn't like Wonder Woman. And that's usually when I start to convince myself to drop the book. And for Wonder Woman in the past, that's the way it's happened. But finally, here with Wonder Woman, now number 5, I am so excited to say I do not see this book getting like that. I don't see this book tapering off anytime soon and becoming the Wonder Woman books of the past. This is a really strong book, and it's done in a new direction. Like the Incredible Hulk for Marvel, Wonder Woman has that fresh feel now. She's revitalized, she's fresh. She's doing everything that I think all the DC books were supposed to be doing, and some of them are, and that is taking these established heroes, making them new again, making them fresh, making them exciting, making them unique. And Wonder Woman does all of that. Like I said, very similar to the new Incredible Hulk books. If you've never read a Wonder Woman book before and you want to start reading this character, now is the perfect time. This is the best I have ever read Wonder Woman on a solo book. She is just represented here in a great way. I've said this before, it's very warrior princess in a good way. And number 5 is just the same good stuff, even better. This team has done an absolute knockout job with Wonder Woman, and I have put this on the very top of my favorite DC books. Wonder Woman is a great series, and if you're not reading it, pick up the trade when it comes out and start reading it right now. And with one great female character from DC to another, Catwoman is also a really good book by DC. Now, it's not as strong, in my opinion, as Wonder Woman is, but it's still a big surprise for me. I picked up issues number 1, and I read it. Number 2, I read it, and I thought, well, this is pretty good. I really like Winnick. I like what he's doing here. And I thought, but at the time I thought, but if I'm only keeping one of these books by Winnick, it'll probably be Batwing. Then a few more issues go in, and not the case anymore. I ended up keeping Catwoman and letting go of Batwing, which is still a great comic, but the must-read for me was Catwoman. Here's a character I've always liked, but I've never really focused on her before. I've read, Catwoman-focused trades, but never really series, ongoings. This is the first ongoing series that I've ever read personally. I think she's had a couple before, but I've never really read them except for, like I said, on trade. But now with this book, she's a really great character. She has a very strong book now, and I really have been respecting this character more and more as the issues have been coming out. I think Winnick really gets who she is, and I think they're really executing Catwoman fantastically. They really have been taking this character that has always been connected to Batman, and they did her in a way where now she's just a really strong individual character. Now, like I said, I've also read her in Gotham City Sirens, and obviously she was a main character there. But now with her own book, I can't imagine them doing a better job. Winnick and this team here have been doing a fantastic job with Catwoman, and if you haven't been reading it up to this point, I think now's a pretty good time to be jumping on. Catwoman is a great book. And with that said, my next 2 books by DC are Red Hood and the Outlaws and Nightwing. Here's 2 books that I keep on trying to find excuses why I shouldn't have them in my saver because I want to cut my numbering back. But whenever issue comes out, I just can't imagine not picking up the next one. Both books are really good. Nightwing here is a must for any Dick Grayson fans. It's the only book that really has him in it. And I really got invested in Dick Grayson. Yeah, I've always liked Dick Grayson. I really have. But when he became Batman, I really started to see Dick Grayson in a whole new light. So when he was leaving being Batman and coming back to being his Nightwing persona, it was just a no-brainer for me. I just wanted to continue reading this Dick Grayson. Now, even though Scott Snyder's not writing this, I think Higgins and Burroughs are doing a really good job with this book. At this point, I'm still going to be keeping Nightwing. It's definitely not on the top of my must-read lists for DC, but it's definitely strongly in my top 10 books from DC. And I think that goes the same here for Red Hood and the Outlaws. Again, another character that I really like after watching the anime and reading the limited run, the Lost Years, and all that stuff. Red Hood has become a character that I really want to read. I've always liked Jason here. I've always liked him. But I'm really excited that they're focusing on him. He's always been a character that hasn't really had his shining, moment. And now with the very first ongoing series with him in it, again, it was a no-brainer. I had to be reading it. Now, Nightwing is a good book, and it's always well written, but sometimes the artwork isn't necessarily my flavor. Red Hood is the opposite. It has not maybe as good writing as Nightwing, but it always has a fantastic art style that I love to look at. So these 2 books are very similar in that way, just opposite ends of the book there. This is a great storyline going on right now. I do think that it's definitely these last 2 issues, or maybe even 3, were stronger than the first 2 issues, even though I thought it started out pretty good. But I do think that if you're interested in Red Hood, this is definitely a must pick up. Again, it's on the outskirts of the must-reads for the Bat family, but even though it is Bat family, it can be read all by itself. Red Hood and the Outlaws is definitely a strong recommendation for me. And next up here are Batman and Batman and Robin. Now, even though those other two books are really good books, now we're getting to the must-reads. I wouldn't say Red Hood and Nightwing are must-reads unless you're really into those characters like I am. But now, if you read any Batman books, here's two titles that you really have to be reading. Batman and Robin is continuing a really good story arc. And, you know, at first when Morrison left Batman and Robin, I was really wondering, this is way back when, of last year. I was really wondering if I was going to be staying on the book. But the team that took over did a total flashbang job. In fact, I thought it got revitalized exactly the way it should have been. And from then on, I thought, you know what, this is definitely going to be one of my top tiers, and it is a must-read. Like, if you're reading Batman Incorporated, you have to be reading Batman and Robin. They both connect into the whole Batman Inc. Stuff that's going on with Grant Morrison. Both these books really do. And like that Leviathan that just came out, that connected to both Batman and Robin and Batman Incorporated. And in that way, Batman and Robin is definitely a must-read for any Batman fan. It's also, on its own merit, it's really great to have a Batman and Robin book, especially now that you have Bruce Wayne and Damian Wayne together. Also, I thought they might wait to do this type of storyline till later, but they're just doing it right out of the gate. Batman betrayed here on the cover. Again, I'm not going to spoil stuff with this books. In any of these books, if I can, because I think they're must reads, and I don't want to spoil that. Batman and Robin is definitely a must read for Batman fans, and this is a great time to jump on. Now, when I say that, you definitely want to be reading the beginning of the story arc. I don't mean jump on a number 5 here, but this book in general, go back a couple issues, and it's a great time to start reading. Next up here, Batman, and this is the big book by Capullo and Snyder. After reading how Snyder writes Batman, at that time it was Dick Grayson in Detective Comics, I was thinking to myself, I have to read any book that Snyder is writing, especially about Batman. And I heard about this book and have been excited about it. First couple issues I thought were pretty good, but like Scott Snyder, it always gets really good a few issues down the line. And now at issue 5, it is really getting good. This is Scott Snyder at his best, and Capullo is doing a fantastic job with him. Again, this is not necessarily the flagship of DC, but I do think that Batman by Snyder and Capullo is the flagship for the Bat books. Definitely a must read, and it's a great book. And next up here is Batwoman and Batgirl. I'll start with Batgirl here. I was really excited about this book. I like Batgirl. I've been on this comic for a while now. And when they relaunched it, I was totally on board 100%. And I really, really like Simone, okay? I think she's a great writer. I love her on Birds of Prey. And I think she is doing a good job here. Unfortunately, it wasn't grabbing me a way that a lot of the other books were. And I may have done it a little too soon, but I did drop the book after issue number 5. Now, I will be keeping my eye out for Batgirl, and when I see it on the shelf, I will be grabbing it. But the moment I start missing issues, that's when I start really letting go of a book. If I miss a couple issues, I'm like, okay, I'm done with the book. I'm not going to even worry about it anymore. And with Batgirl at this point, that's kind of the way I feel about it. Now, with that said, with issue number 5 here, I do like this new story direction. You have Batgirl. She comes. It starts off with her coming on the Gotham City Bridge, and immediately she gets in a fight with another femme fatale, and this character, she is kicking Batgirl's butt. I mean, it happens real quick too. So that was pretty cool, and I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. But then I kind of felt that way about the first story arc. I thought it was really good, interesting at first, and then it kind of tapered off for me. So it is officially off my saver for now, but I'm not 100% willing to give up on Batgirl just yet. It's been pushed out of my saver. But I will be looking for the issues, and as long as I can get them, I will read the story arc. So again, if you like Batgirl, this might be a great time to start jumping on, because this is the beginning of a new story arc. And like I said, I kind of like the direction it's going in. But over here to the right is an absolute must-read, and that is Batwoman number 5. This has been a must-read from the very beginning. Every single issue has been absolutely red hot, and there's no question that if you're only reading a handful of Bat books, this has to be one of them. Batwoman is a great character, and this team is the only team that I would ever want to read doing Batwoman. I cannot imagine anyone else doing this book. It is an absolute masterwork, and as you're reading this book, you know it's something special. As good as a lot of DC books are, there's only a handful that have a very, very special quality where you can say, I would read this by itself without anything else. Batwoman is one of those books. Like, if I was only reading 5 books, this would have to be one of them. It's that good. This is also one of the rare books that I will be picking up both in singles and in trade. Now, some people like to talk about the story, and I do like to, but I just feel so bad in spoiling such a great book that I really want to promote. So, again, I'm not going to talk too much about Batwoman. You really want to be reading this book. It is one of the most beautiful books to look at that has ever been done. At the same time, it is so strongly written that it's a combination of fantastic writing, fantastic, beautiful artwork that is so special. You actually feel like this is a special book as you're reading it. No joke. A must read. And with that said, again, I try not to put Batwoman in my pick of the week every single time, because that would be kind of unfair. So even though it might not be always my pick of the week, or even maybe honorable mention, which I think has always been an honorable mention, it's only because I don't want to always be picking the same book, because I would be picking it almost every time. And with that said, here is the remainder of my DC. These came out obviously a while ago, but I am posting them now. And that is Action Comics Superman and Detective Batman. These are the two big legacy titles that, of course, were the first time restarted at the beginning of this big DC relaunch. And with all that is said and done, they both are very strong books. Now, while Batman Detective Comics isn't necessarily the must-read that it was, I felt, when Scott Snyder was on, I still think that they're doing a really good job with it, and it's always in my pull list for sure. Same here with Superman. I think if you're reading one Superman book, it's definitely going to be action. So in that way, it is definitely a more important book to be reading than maybe a Detective is. Especially if you're Superman fans, it's a must. Also, you have the master, Grant Morrison, doing Superman, and he hasn't done Superman since All-Star. So, yeah, with that alone, it's a must-read. Now, a lot of people have been like back and forth with how they feel about Action. I've always kind of felt the same way. Some of the art was questionable, but I always liked the story. But now, 5 issues in, the artwork has completely grown on me, and I really like it. together with Morrison's writing. Sometimes Morrison is best written all at once, and I would say this is probably no exception. I myself will always be picking up action, especially with Morrison on. But I can see people that maybe aren't huge Morrison fans. Maybe they want to wait for the trade. I get that. I can see this being really great just reading for the first time on trade. But with that said, I do like right now, we're getting It Begins again. We're getting the real origin here of what happened with Superman. This is kind of when I was waiting for, and I was kind of disappointed that it didn't start here from issue number 1. This is what I was expecting with issue number 1. But now that I'm finally here and we're finally starting it, I thought, oh, you know what? I kind of see the point of doing it this way. Get introduced with the character already in a different way. He's still younger, but it's not the introduction point that I was expecting. But now here, 5 issues in, we're getting the true beginning of Superman. I'm really happy that we're on this now, and I can't be more excited to the direction that this is going. Action Comics Superman now at this issue is at its very, very best, and I cannot wait for the future issues on this part of the story. Next here, Batman Detective Comics. This is the new story arc that's going on after the first one. And look, I was one of the people that was really happy about the first story arc. It definitely had shockers at the very end of the books. And for me, it worked. Now that we are doing the second story arc, I think that doesn't quite have a lot of stuff that was going on in the first one as in shock value, but I think we're done with that. I think we need to move on from that. So at this point, I think it is a really good second story arc. Now, a lot of people have been reading this and comparing it to the miniseries that everyone's been raving about, that I hear is so great, and I can't wait to read it, and that is the limited run about the Penguin put out by DC. What I hear is that is such a great character study of that particular character, and they want that type of depth in the Penguin now. And I think I haven't read it yet, but I can see that being a good case there. But because I haven't read it, I can't compare that to this. So for not reading that and just reading this Penguin, I particularly like it. I have always liked the Penguin, and I like he's such a different, unique character, and when he's going against Batman, it's definitely much different than the Joker and other characters. Now, I have been playing Arkham City, and I've been kind of digging that version, that kind of video game version of the Penguin. So I guess if I was also reading the Penguin miniseries, I'd be getting 3 different versions of the Penguin, and that might be kind of messing with how I enjoy this book. But I do find myself comparing it to the Arkham City Penguin. But I try not to think about that too much. And taking it by itself, I think that this is a good book and a very strong book. Again, Detective at this point has never been an absolute have-to read. But for me, it's a legacy title, and I definitely want to be reading it. I would say, as in Bat book scale, it's definitely not as important as maybe Batman Incorporated and Batman and Robin and the Batman book. But if I think that you want a comic book that can be read by itself, Batman Detective is definitely that. Like, let's say you don't want to buy 5 Bat books. You want to get 1 Bat book. Or maybe you want 2. Well, I would say you want to get Batman with Snyder, and you want to get Detective here with Daniel. So that's definitely true. This would be a great book to pick up if you don't want to be reading a bunch of books like all the stuff's going on with Grant Morrison and stuff. Then this is a very, very strong recommendation, and yeah, it's probably a must. But if you're reading a lot of Bat books like I am, this is probably in the middle. This is like a book that I want to read, but I don't necessarily have to. But I personally am enjoying it. I think the art style is really strong, and I think the writing is equally as good. And with that said, those are my DC books, And I'm really curious, what books are you guys reading? At this point, being 5 issues in, I'm assuming a lot of people are dropping. I certainly dropped a bunch of books recently, even though I ended up picking up a couple more. So I'm curious, which of these books are you guys sticking with, and which of these books are you guys dropping? And with that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.